What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wish You Had Dad. I am John Gafford, where I give you life advice that is twice as nice. Now, everybody's always heard this at one point in their life. I'm going to sue you, or you say I'm going to sue you to somebody. So today what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring in an actual attorney to give you some advice as to when you actually need to hire one and what you need to look for during that process. So welcome, Chris Connell.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Las Vegas attorney extraordinaire. Sorry about that.
You got it.
So, Chris, I grew up in a law office. My dad was an attorney, of course, and he always told me the same bit of advice, which is lawsuits are like fist fights. You never tell somebody you're going to go punch them in the face. You just do it. Same way with lawsuits.
Absolutely. Well, first off, don't do it, kids. But lawsuits are one of those things where it doesn't take anything for somebody. So I'm going to sue you. Some people will owe each other $700 and they go, I'm going to sue you. And they'll call me up and they'll say, you know what? I feel slighted. I feel like I want to sue this person. And I'll say, okay, what happened? They go, well, they knocked down my tree in front of my yard and I'm really mad. And I go, okay, how much is that tree worth? And they'll say, it's a $500 tree.
Yeah.
I say, okay, well, because here's the online small claims complaint that for anything under $10,000. And they go, but I really want to sue this person. And I go, okay, the cost to sue them alone is going to cost more than your tree.
Yeah,
just
sure.
to file the lawsuit, not to do anything else, not to go to court, do discovery of litigation. So never. The answer is hire an attorney when it is something at least in excess of $15,000.
Okay.
And if there's kids listening, I know it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, 15 grand.
But that's the reality of it.
Well, and I love this. So, I'm going to separate. We're going to talk about two different things. I want to separate personal injury from like business or
that's a good point.
I think that's a good thing to do.
That's a good point.
So, when your neighbor damages your fence or somebody was supposed to pay somebody that didn't pay you,
right.
What's the process? Walk me through the process. And generalize it, obviously, because people will be watching this in different states. What's the general process for small claims court? What does that look? What is that expense? What's that? How does that work?
So for the small things that happen in life, these small grievances where people aren't going to be reasonable, right? Let's say I come over to John's house and I knock over his dish and I break. I'm going to buy that dish for John, and John will say, "Oh, don't." Reasonable people don't usually, oftentimes, get things to the point where they need lawsuits, right? Most people, we function pretty well in society, but there are people that get their feelings hurt or they get mad at you personally. And when people are personally, they feel like you've done something wrong to them, a lot of times they want to hurt you back. And sometimes the only way to do that, they can't just go punch you in the schoolyard.
Right.
So what they're going to do is they say, I'm going to sue you. And I say, okay, if it's something that you feel that your time is worth investing in this, because the most important lesson in life is the only currency that matters is your time.
It's time.
Absolutely. Undeniable. Wait till you start getting a little older and the knees get a little creaky.
You can't get that back. Enjoy those knees while you can, kids.
Warren Buffett, Bill Gates every one of them would trade their life for yours right now.
Yeah, it's a good point.
It's a weird reality, but so time is your main, asset. If you're going to give up your time, though, if you feel that strongly about it, you can go down to the courthouse, and they're very helpful. You find your courthouse in your city, and you say, I want to know what the small claims process, and people will generally walk you through it. They can't give you legal advice because that violates a bunch of professional rules. Only lawyers can give actual legal advice. Other people can give legal information, not legal advice.
I give legal advice all the time. It's not any good. It's going to get somebody in trouble. Yeah, there you go.
He's just kidding.
I'm just kidding.
Disclaimer. He's kidding. Do not give legal advice. So what you're going to do is you go down, you'll have a form, and you fill it out, and you say, Bob grieved me by knocking over my tree, and I think it's worth $500. And you file it. It costs you $200 to file it. That's how courts operate. They're funded through lawsuits.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a lot of fees and costs. Every time I file something, it's money out of the pocket of my client.
Sure.
So you go down and they'll send you a time. I think in the small claims here, and I don't practice small claims.
Yeah.
Because lawyers don't usually.
No, because you do it yourself and there's not enough money in it.
Exactly. So if you feel grieved, go to the small claims process. Look it up online. Kids are savvy these days and can figure it out.
Use the Google machine.
Use the old Google machine.
They're like, we used that Google machine to find you, and now you're telling us to go find it again. What kind of show is this?
This is a double Google machine episode. So what you do is you fill out what happened. You say, Bob grieved me. He did this. You knocked my tree down. I want this money. And then they'll send a copy to Bob, and Bob will show up. And then you go in front of a judge. They'll give you one court date. There's no discovery. Yeah. And they'll say, hey, what happened? Be like, oh, Bob's a jerk. He knocked my tree down. Bob, did you knock his tree down?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was an accident, though, and it was a stupid tree, and I didn't like it. Okay, Bob, give him his tree, $500. Yeah. So we'll give you a court order. But simple.
But here comes the challenging part. Winning a lawsuit is just the smallest part of the battle, believe it or not, because collecting that money good luck, right? You may not be able to collect that money from Bob, correct?
It's one of the hardest things on earth is to now collect that money from Bob. Now you got to go get an attorney in some instances.
Yes, to collect the $500 that you got.
Depends. I always say this. It's funny. People that have nothing to lose have a hard time hurting people with anything to lose. Yeah. Right. If you got millions of dollars in your bank account, then all of a sudden you want to, oh no, I'll negotiate, I'll settle, I'll pay so you don't come after me, you don't get the courts after me. But if you have nothing and I can't come after you, then I can get all the judgments in the world. So now I spent all my money trying to get this case going and I won, and I go to get it from Bob and he doesn't pay. Well, I mean, sometimes that's it. These judgments.
And I got to tell you, what winds people up in that situation more often than not is because everybody loves it. When they get slighted, when something gets damaged, everybody goes into this. It's the principle of the thing, Chris. It's the principle thing. And I have one thing I live my life by, which is principles don't pay the bills. Yeah. So, you've got to be smart about what you're doing. If you're going after somebody just to go after them, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
It doesn't.
Believe me, and I speak from experience of having people, probably $1 million in my life has gone in the wind from people that have one way or another manipulated that money, stolen that money, just gotten away with it. And sometimes, yes, would it be the right principle to go chase them?
Right.
Yes, but if they no longer have it,
right.
It's a waste of my time and a waste of my money.
Am I going to spend $10 to go after the kid to get my $5 back?
It doesn't make any sense. Now, let's talk about personal injury. So I'm driving along. I got rear-ended. I got hit. There's 50 million commercials on television for attorneys.
Right.
What do I need to look for when hiring an attorney in personal injury?
So when you're going to hire an attorney, I want you to think to yourself, under any stage in life, I don't care if you're a kid, I don't care if you're a teenager and you're driving in an accident, or if you're a 75-year-old guy and you're retired. It's all going to be the same thing. What is this attorney going to do for me, right? People sometimes forget that I'm the first person. I've had one attorney personally my whole life. Mm-hmm. I've used one. And even that, and I was in law school at the time, I had to go see an attorney, and it's petrifying, and I had a claim.
Yeah.
And it's just like, listen what the attorney says, because there's this authority that comes. People think, that's an attorney, he knows everything. Well, a lot of times they don't. Mm-hmm. A lot of what we do, oftentimes, just like hiring a good realtor, like hiring a good, a dentist, what's their level of customer service like? Or do they call me back? Who am I talking to? I have a lot of clients, they think they're hiring an attorney.
They're hiring paralegals.
And they're hiring paralegals at these other firms. So they'll come over to me and say, this paralegal never got back to me. I'm like, well, what'd the attorney say? Well, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in 8 months.
Yeah.
And I go, well, that should be your first clue that maybe you're not hiring an attorney. Maybe you've been thrown in a mill. Now, I would never speak ill of any other attorney in town, but there's a way that business can work in all kinds of businesses. Mm-hmm. You can be a high volume business. You got to get them in, and you feed the advertising machine, and you have to recycle them real quick, because all that stuff costs a bunch of money.
Of course it does.
And that has to keep coming in. You got to feed the monster. Mm-hmm. It's like, do you want a 120-pound, Irish Wolfhound, or do you want a Chihuahua?
Yeah.
Both are going to bark and keep your house safe.
Sure.
One, you got to feed, though, bags and bags and bags of food. So at the end of the day, both will get the job done in terms of barking at the door. Mm-hmm. But one is a lot more manageable. Me personally, I like boutique things. Mm-hmm. I like small firms. I like firms that your case means something to them, mm-hmm. right? Big firms, to me, I've never been one that thought that the value was necessarily there until, the case gets completely out of control. So
let's talk about this, because when you go into an attorney's office, you talk about, I'm going to hire you on retainer mm-hmm. or on contingency. What does that mean, and what's the difference between those two things?
That's a great question. So a contingency case is one where, like John was talking about earlier, there's an insurance company on the other end of it. So what happens is, if you're in a car accident, right, one of these major insurance companies, they're insuring that driver, right? And there's big business behind that. So that if you do go to court with them, that you can collect on it, because they're not going to let their whole business fall apart just to not pay your one claim.
Yeah.
And we're protected, the Nevada Division of Industry and all these things. They regulate how insurance companies work, things of that nature. So in car accident cases, a lot of times lawyers are going to say, I'll take your case, but typically, and again, because of antitrust and things, there's no fixed rate. But the market seems to dictate that it goes somewhere between a quarter and a third of any recovery. So they have to go do all the work. Mm. And the promise is that I'm going to do all this work. And in the end, if you get something back, I'll take a percentage of it. So that percentage is strictly a matter of what you negotiate with that with that attorney. With the attorney, yeah.
They're all different. So if I'm hiring somebody to defend me in a case where I have to give them a retainer, explain what that is.
Okay, now a retainer is one of those other situations where you say, I'm going to fight this guy. He
did whatever.
He did whatever. Something bad happened, and I disagree. Or we have a dispute over real estate or something. He breached his contract.
Yeah, whatever it was.
So you come to my office and say he breached his contract, and I want to sue him. So I say, okay. Well, I can't get this case started because I have to pay costs to file the lawsuit. Yep. I have to pay for runners. I have to have them served. I have to find someone. I have to pay a guy to go
skip tracers. In some cases, you have to find them.
You have to go find
the bounty hunter needs a job.
Dog the bounty hunter has to go beat him up, right? So exactly. So there's costs. Cost to drive to court and cost to file papers and all that. So you come into my office and I say, and then I'm going to have to bill you for my time to prepare the complaint or to answer if you've been sued, I have to answer. So typically we'll ask for a certain amount up front because I have to cover my costs. I'm not going to do it and then try to collect from you later, especially if you're the kind of guy that was not paying to begin with.
Especially if you're defending something for non-payment, an attorney is not going to take that on the good graces of your
That's
promises.
right. No, it's not a trust game because
they're not going to do that. They're just not.
So be prepared that if you want to pursue somebody, not in that small claims one we were talking about, but in a regular lawsuit, be prepared to understand that the attorney is going to need some money typically up front.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to I want to leave this with one big tip, which is the best tip that I can give you, which is the number one thing you should pay an attorney for is the letter. The letter is worth the law. Sometimes will prevent the lawsuit. Don't be scared to engage an attorney to write you a letter demanding from the other party whatever it is. Because sometimes what happens is if you say it's $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, we have engaged Chris a lot in times where we have brokers not pay us, clients not pay us, things like that. And literally we'll just pay him a couple $100 to prepare and send a letter to this person saying, here's a formal demand from my client. Here it is, blah, blah. And because people get a letter from an attorney, they freak out a little bit. They then call an attorney. The attorney then actually gives them normally some good advice, which is, it's not really worth the headache to deal with this. Just pay them.
Right.
And then it gets it back. So that letter, I will say this, can save you from filing a lawsuit. Right. So sometimes it's worth it just to call, discuss your issue with them, and ask them to write you a demand letter.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we do that all the time because a lot of times people won't take that threat seriously.
Yeah.
So I'm going to sue you. Now, if you hire me, now I'm actually giving you legal advice by writing a letter. That's what people don't realize. I don't fully engage a client and ask for $5,000 to write a letter. I'll just say, yes, I'll take that. And if it turns out that you don't follow through or whatever, then we go back and then we file our suit.
Yeah.
But John's absolutely right. That's a really good first step is just talk to an attorney and say, hey, what would a letter cost me?
I think that's the best. So don't be scared to call an attorney. If you have any questions, comments, Chris, how do they get a hold of you? How do they find you?
www.connellaw.com, 3 L's or 702 Connell. My phone number is my last name.
Attorneys.
I know.
Attorneys. Anyway, well, thanks for coming in. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure you like and subscribe. See ya.